Hello, fellow book readers. My name is John, and today I would like to talk about the books I read in July. As always, there will be some spoilers, and I'll list the books that I read down below in the description so you'll know what's there in advance. July was a pretty good month of reading for me. I finished two whole series, and I finished another series I started in June. So overall, I finished three different series in July. And they all had their highs and their lows, but for the most part, they were really, really good. And I read a couple other books and like short stories too. So let's start off with the first book I read in July. I actually started this book in June and I finished it in July, and that is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is the third and final book in the Farseer trilogy, which is the first series in her Realm of the Elderling series. And this book, like all the other books in the series for me, was just good. It has, in my opinion, the same problems as the other two books, and that is the pacing. The pacing's just really, really rough in this book, but it's rough in the entire Farseer trilogy. And I shouldn't say it's rough. It's rough for me. I just don't love the way that she writes. I don't think it's just a little off for me. So I don't know if I'm gonna be continuing in the Realm of the Elderlings series, even though I do really enjoy her plot work and some of her character work. And that's really where this book shines, is the character work. I thought Verity and Perican especially have really satisfying arcs, and I just love those two as characters, and they shine in this book a lot. I think Fitz grows in this book. He's a much better character here than he was in the first two books, in my opinion. But like I said, the pacing's rough. Like, they meet these cast of characters in the beginning that you think are going to come back into play later, and then they just kind of don't. And I'm wondering why that part was even included. And then there's some other sort of like side quests that go on that just don't seem necessary, and they dragged for me quite a bit. And then there's like Fitz getting captured multiple different times in this book, and it's like, why are we rerunning the same plot multiple different times? So for me, I really struggled with that. And then there's also the sort of resolution to Verity's plot and Regal's plot that I think work and I really liked, but I also found it a bit confusing, and I had to reread it multiple times to understand what I was reading. Especially the Verity plotline, where it looks like he's gonna use Fitz's body to sort of rebirth the stone dragon or make a dragon out of the stone. So you think Fitz is gonna die, and then no, he just needed more emotion, so he used Fitz's body to get emotion, to get memories and emotion to put into the stone dragon. But they don't ever spell this out clearly for you. So when Fitz gets his body back, I feel like he should be celebrating that he's still alive, but he kind of doesn't. Like, he expected this, but like 10 pages earlier, he expected to die, and it just, I think the plotline needs to be spelled out a little bit better than it was. I also didn't love that Fitz wasn't the one to kill Regal, but I did think the way Regal died was very funny and satisfying. And, I think Regal's a great antagonist. He's sort of a Saturday morning cartoon antagonist, but he's very, very easy to hate. Very over the top, but very easy to hate. So I do applaud her with her antagonist work. For me, this book had enough good stuff in it that it's still a good book. 3 stars. Got 3 stars from me. I just don't think her writing is really for me, so I'm probably not going to continue into the live ship traders anytime in the near future. If the books are a little bit shorter, then sure, I could overlook some pacing issues if the books are shorter, but since they're so long, I can't get by the pacing issues. I really struggle with that. Okay, and then I started the Witcher series next, and I actually finished the entire Witcher series this month. I read them in order, so the first book I read was The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. And this is one of the best short story collections I've ever read. It consists of seven short stories, and I thought 6 of them were good to great to perfect, depending on the 6. I did an entire separate video on the Witcher short stories, tier ranking them, so I'll list that below. So I'm not going to talk about this one too much, but I will say that this book has a story called The Lesser Evil that I think is one of my favorite short stories of all time. So if you haven't read it, you should be reading it. If you love short stories, I highly suggest reading The Last Wish. It's really good. And then the next book is another short story collection called The Sword of Destiny. Again, it's also by Andrzej Sapkowski. This one, I thought the last 3 short stories were great to perfect, but the first 3 were a little bit rough and they dragged for me. So there wasn't anything I hated in those short stories, but they were just sort of meh to me. So, for me, this short stories collection is a 3.5 star book. I thought it was very good because, like I said, the last 3 short stories are either great or perfect. I think A Little Sacrifice and The Sword of Destiny are just amazing, amazing short stories that must be read. This is the collection that introduces you to Ciri, and Ciri is my favorite character in The Witcher, not Geralt. I know that might be controversial, but I think Ciri is just a really good character. So yeah, this very good for me. It worked so well. It's not quite as good as The Last Wish because I think a couple of the early short stories just okay instead of great. Okay, next up is The Blood of Elves, which is the third book in the Witcher series, but it is the first of what I would consider the novel series. So yeah, there's 5 novels and 2 short story collections. You can't skip the short story collections. They are, necessary to read the novels. You'll miss out on a lot of backstory, a lot of actual plotting that is relevant to the books. But The Blood of Elves is the first novel in the Witcher series. And I think this one's very good. Yeah, so here's how I describe this one. This one has some really, really great scenes in it. Ciri and Yennefer have a montage collection of scenes at the end, which are amazing. Triss and Geralt training Ciri to be a Witcher in the beginning is a really great introduction to the Witcher life, and I think those scenes are amazing. You have this scene where Geralt shows Ciri this flower field where the elves were from, and it's just really, really, really good. There's this action scene on the boat with Geralt fighting people, and that's really awesome as well. But the threads connecting those stories, I don't think are all that interesting, and they drag a little bit. But like I said, there's 4 or 5 really, really great scenes, and this book isn't that long either, so those 4 or 5 great scenes make up the majority of the book. So for me, this book is very good. It's another 3.5 star book for me. I just wish the threads connecting some of the larger plot points were a little bit tighter or interesting to read. And then the next book is The Time of Contempt, also again by Andrzej Sapkowski. This book is where the series turns the dial up to 11. The politicking in this book is next level. It was like reading A Song of Ice and Fire. The politicking was just so good. And then we have to talk about the events of Thained. I don't know if I'm saying that name right, but this city where where the mages meet, and so much happens in these I think it's 2 chapters. So much happens. It's insane how much happens. Great action, great politicking, great reunions, dialogue, conversations, twists, turns. Just so much happens, and it sets up the main villain of the series, Vilgefortz. And you got the Emperor of Nilfgaard. He's also he's not there, but he's sort of influencing things going on there. And you got these different factions of sorceresses trying to make deals, and you got Geralt there just trying to get Ciri back, and Yennefer trying to help Ciri, and everybody wants Ciri, and you kind of start to see what everybody desires in this series in this 2 chapters, and so much happens, and with a gigantic action scene at the end of it. So good. But that's not the only good parts of the book. You also got that desert scene with Ciri, or the desert chapter with Ciri. That chapter's so good, so heartwarming, and it's I was on the edge of my seat reading that, what is going to happen? And it delivered for me, even though it was, some people might call it a little bit odd, but I really liked the events of that chapter. And, it has a great end, too, with Ciri meeting the rats. And, yeah, you can't really go wrong with this book. I think this book is great. It's a 4-star book. The next book in the series is The Baptism of Fire. Again, also by Andrzej Sapkowski. To me, this one's a good book, not a great book. I have seen online people call this like their favorite Witcher book, and I get why. This is the Geralt book of the series. It's the book that focuses on Geralt the most, and he's most people's favorite character, so I totally get it. This is your favorite book. I'm not criticizing you at all. For me, this book was just good. There was some stuff I really loved about it. I loved the vampire Regis. I thought he was a great character, so funny. Dandelion has some great moments in this. The found family stuff is good. I just don't think their plot has a lot of interesting things going on in it until like the end near the bridge. And this book just lacks Ciri. Like she's in the book, but she's not in it nearly enough, considering she is really the main character of these novels. And look, I love the chase to try to get Ciri back. Everybody's trying to find Ciri, so I love that. I love the motivation there. I just wish this book had more Ciri. Don't get me wrong. Some good scenes. Like I said, the climax is really, really good, and there were some really great introductions of characters in this book. For me, this is just a 3-star book. Still good, just not great. And next up is The Tower of Swallows. This is my favorite book in the series. This is really Ciri's book. She's awesome in this book. Like, you're beyond the edge of your seat reading this book. So this book introduces one of the best antagonists I read this year, Bonholt. This guy's a real bastard, real evil, real sadistic. When he captures Ciri, my heart dropped, and like the stuff Ciri goes through in this book, the trauma is so heartbreaking. But she's such a fighter, and the way she fights through it is so powerful. And the climax on the ice is one of the best scenes I've read this year. It's so good, so tense. I don't know what else to say. Like, read this book for Ciri. The Ciri stuff in this book is great, and the end is superb. And also, Yennefer has like a really great chapter where she's with Vigilforts. Vigilforts captures her. That chapter is also just perfect. So the only reason this book doesn't get 5 stars for me is because the Geralt stuff is good. It's good. It's not great, though. For me, this gets the easy 4 stars. It's a great book. Okay, and then the last and final book in the Witcher series is The Lady of the Lake. Again, also by Andrzej Sapkowski. This book's good, not great for me. It just gets a little weird. A little weird. We were telling like a fine story. I was really interested in what was happening, and then all of a sudden we turn into a King Arthur story. Like, Ciri is traveling through different dimensions, and there's King Arthur characters there. And don't get me wrong, some of that stuff was really good. I loved the parallels at the end to the King Arthur story where Ciri puts Geralt and Yennefer on a boat, and they sail off into the fog. It's the Avalon end to the King Arthur story. Like, we don't know if Yennefer and Geralt are still alive or if they're dead. There is a scene with them at the end, but we don't know if this is during the afterlife or if they're still alive, but they're just in this city healing. We have no idea. It's perfect. That's one of my favorite parts of the King Arthur legend, and I think this story did a really good job with honoring that and paying homage to it. It's clear that Andrzej Sapkowski is a big fan of the King Arthur, legend, because he does all the stuff here really wonderful. I just didn't really want King Arthur characters in this book. Whatever. I mean, yeah, sure, the series ends with Ciri riding off with Galad to Camelot in a different dimension, and it's like, that's cool. I love that Ciri's going on another adventure, but I don't know why Galad's in this thing, and I don't know why Namu is in this thing, and I really didn't need Merlin being mentioned, and any other crazy things that happened in this book. Book had some weird stuff going on. But I do say there are some of my favorite scenes in the series in this book, where when everybody descends on Vigilforts's castle, and you got Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer's reunion. It's so powerful, so good, and the action in it is top notch. I cheered when Ciri killed Bonholt. That was such a great scene. And the Emperor of Nilfgaard, the twist on that was perfect. I didn't see it coming, and I loved how he kind of let everybody live at the end. He had a heart. That was so good. But again, this book has some really weird stuff that I just totally didn't click with, so I can't say it's a great book for me. It was just good. It's 3 stars. Okay, then the next book I read was The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is the first book in the Bloodsworn trilogy. This book was very good. I gave it 3.5 stars. I loved the Norse mythology sort of influences that this book took. I love like giant monsters, and we get a really cool climax with one in this book. And it introduced us to 3 point of view characters that each had their own story going on, and I think it all for the most part worked. I really loved Elver's story. Elver's story from the beginning to the end got me. She was just awesome. I was super invested in it. Orca's story also got me from beginning to end. Not quite as great as Elvar's did in this book, but it still got me. The beginning to end, I was never bored with her chapters. I thought they were very interesting. I loved the family vibe that the story had going, where each character was sort of influenced or doing this journey for their family in one way or another. That was very good. Where this book struggles a little bit for me is the Varg chapters. I thought the beginning of Varg chapters were very good, and I thought the end of the Varg chapters were great. The middle bit dragged for me. It just did. And there's quite a few Varg chapters in that middle bit, so I can't say that everything worked for me with the Varg chapters. And one other thing, this book suffers from what I like to call the Mortal Kombat syndrome a bit, where almost every chapter there's a fight breaking out in it. And look, I understand I'm in the minority here. People are reading John Gwynne. This is one of the books I didn't read on Kindle this month. I actually have the book for. People are reading John Gwynne for the action. So I get that. He writes very good, very realistic action. I'm not even denying that. It's awesome. His action's awesome. I just thought there was a little bit too much of it in this book. It didn't let his characters breathe. But that's what people want from his books. So I get it. And again, it didn't take away my enjoyment too much. I still thought this was a very good book. I gave it 3.5 stars. And then I read The Hunger of the Gods, which is the second book in the Bloodsworn trilogy. And this one I read on Kindle. This is my favorite book in the trilogy. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's great. I loved each and every climax. I loved each and every climax in this book. I loved Orca's climax, especially with the where she meets Brekka again, her child that she's trying to save, and I love how she does save him here, even at her own cost. It's perfect. It was so Orca. It worked so well. I loved Elvar's, climax here as well, and I thought Varg was much, much, much improved in this book. He was great. I loved him in this book. His story was awesome. He still was my least favorite of the 3, but I was invested in his journey the entire way this time. This book introduces 2 new point of view characters here, so we get 5 instead of 3. We get Bior and Guvar. I think they're both really interesting characters here. I think Bior's chapters are a little better than Guvar's. I'll say Guvar's are the weakest of the bunch, the ones I was least interested in reading. I was still, invested in his chapters, though. Just not as much. If they were, amazing, this book would probably get 5 stars. I think they were just very good. I love some of the twists in this book. I love that Rada was still alive, the Rat King. Rat God, I mean. I did not expect that. I should have saw that coming. I don't know how I didn't, but I didn't see it coming. This book was longer, but somehow the characters, there was less action in it, it felt like, than in the first book, which gave the characters more room to breathe, and I thought the character growth was really, really good in this book. So yeah, this is a great book. I gave it 4 stars. It's my favorite of the trilogy. And then last in the trilogy was Fear of the Gods, which I read next. I do have the physical book for this one. By the way, I love the covers for this series. I think these covers are some of my favorite I've ever, had or seen. Yeah, I love this one too. I love the end for every single character. My heart broke when Elvar died. I was so sad. I thought it was a good death though. I wasn't like, okay, this was wrong. She shouldn't have died. It made sense that she died. It was pretty perfect. I love the end for all the characters. I thought Orca's end was especially satisfying. Varg's end was especially satisfying. PR and Guvar don't get satisfying ends, but they get ends that make sense for their characters. And it showed us what their characters are in this book. And you kind of end up rooting for them despite how sort of messy they are as people. Yeah, this book was great. We do get I think the climax went on just a little bit too long. It was like 100 something straight page, 100 and I don't know, probably 20 to 50 pages of like just straight action almost, which was great. And, you expected it in the series, but for me, it was just a little bit too long. But again, this is another 4-star book for me. It has a great, satisfying ending, some great character work, some really good twists. Yeah, I can't really complain. Okay, and then next I read The Hero in the Crown by Robin McKinley. So yeah, I heard about Robin McKinley and The Hero in the Crown from a Brandon Sanderson podcast, and I was interested in reading it because I then found out that it was one of Sarah J. Maas's inspirations for Throne of Glass. And yeah, I love this. I love the story. It was awesome. This book was written in the '80s, so I was a little hesitant. I was like, "Is this gonna age badly?" It did not age badly at all. I thought the writing was very easy to read. It was a little old school, but it wasn't aged badly. It was like, "Oh, this is dragging." No, I thought the pacing was perfect. I thought the words were easy to read. This is the classic hero's quest. This is what this book is. It's the classic hero's quest. It gives you one of the first like strong female protagonists in fantasy, and Aerin Firehair. Yeah, and her story is just awesome. She's a really strong character. You root for her the entire time. I did think there was like kind of a needless love triangle thrown in towards the end, and that's really my only critique of the book. This sort of like needless love triangle, but it gets resolved in like a satisfying way where she's like ends up kind of with both of them, and it's like, okay, I guess. Sure, if this was today, she would have ended up with just like the powerful wizard. But that's not what happens in this book, and I thought the book was better for it. I thought the action was pretty damn good in this book too. Character work, really awesome. Yeah, I really like this book. This is a 4-star book for me. It's great. I think it's one of those like classics that are like must read. It is definitely more of a children/young adult book than it is an adult book, but I still had a very good time reading it. Okay, and then next up was Death Row by Freida McFadden. So I was waiting for a book to come in. So I had like a day without a book, but I had time to read. So I wanted to read something quick and short on my Kindle, and I chose Death Row by Freida McFadden because I had seen people talk about it on, BookTube. So I was interested in what all the buzz was about. And yeah, this book held my attention. I really was intrigued most of the way through. So it stars this woman on death row for murdering her husband. She says she has an alibi, and she's like a couple weeks away from being executed. So we go in trying to figure out if she's like innocent or not. And it's told in flashbacks and present day, sort of like split. So you get like a present day chapter, then a flashback chapter, then a present day chapter, then a flashback chapter. And this goes on until we find out her husband is actually, still alive. Or at least she thinks he is. And there's this great twist at the end, which I won't spoil, but it was so good. The problem is, after the twist, they added another scene, and another scene doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. Is the other scene just like supposed to be a second twist on top of the twist? If it is, I don't love it. Or is it supposed to just be like, she's dead now, so this is sort of just like a dream? Or are they both in the afterlife? It makes no sense why the second twist was added, because the first twist was so good. But, I digress. It's still a good book. It's short, very well paced. I gave it 3 stars. It's a good book. I just wish the second twist didn't exist. Okay, then lastly, I read A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's the first book in the Earthsea series. This is another classic. When we talk like the pillars of old fantasy, it's always Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia. Right under that is the Earthsea series. It's not epic fantasy. You're not getting war with this book. It's about a wizard of the Earthsea, and can he save himself and people from this like dark sort of shadow spirit that he released on people. I think this is a classic sort of read that everybody should read, but for me, it was just okay. It was fine. It was 2.5 stars for me, mostly because I felt it aged sort of poorly. Not the theming or the plot, and I do think the prose is beautiful, but I do think it's a little bit long-winded at times. This book's short, but I think it could have been even shorter. Uh, and it's mostly on the prose. Like the prose was just sort of filled with stuff that it didn't need to be filled with, even though it is beautiful, if that makes sense. I thought the characters were interesting. Jed is just a really awesome character. I don't think he's like that easy to root for because he's sort of wild and he can do some stuff that's like against the rules. But he does have a charm to him, and he's definitely an interesting character. I thought there were a couple of great scenes. The scene with the dragon is awesome. That was my favorite part of the book by far. I love that dragon confrontation. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was perfect fantasy. I thought the scene with him and Surette when he's in that one castle is really good. I thought Surette's just like a very interesting character, and I hope she's kind of in other Earthsea novels. I do plan to read the rest of the series, or at least try to. Hopefully I connect with some of the other books better than I connected with the first one. But I thought the Surette stuff was great. Yeah, I thought she's just a really interesting character. So I thought those two scenes or those two chapters were next level great. Those were easy, like 4-star chapters for me. The rest of the book probably falls in the 2-star range. So I gave this a 2.5-star rating for me, because that's the majority of the book. The end was very, very predictable. You can see it coming from a mile away. It doesn't mean it's a bad end. Again, I go on the hill that predictable isn't bad. Predictable usually means things are foreshadowed very well. And this is a children's story, so you expect things to be foreshadowed even like more, right? It's like more heavy-handed foreshadowing. So you're going to get stuff. But the end was very predictable, so I just want to throw that out as a warning. Don't expect to go into the end being like, I didn't, with like some great surprise. You're probably going to be able to guess the end before it happens. So those are the books I read in July. My favorite of those books would probably be Hunger of the Gods, but I think Tower of the Swallow is very, very close. I really loved the Witcher series. I thought I had a great time reading it, and Fear of the Gods was a beyond great time reading it. I will probably read more John Gwynne books in the future. Probably next year I will read this other big series. I forget what it's called. But let me know what you guys read down below. Let me know if you read any of the books I read. And yeah, I hope you had a great reading month too, and hope your reading months are good to finish out the year.